If you're considering a family crossover SUV, a car like this would go a bit under the radar, because the cars that immediately comes to your attention are cars like the Kia EV6 and the Volkswagen ID.4. This is a Nissan Ariya, and Nissan sometimes tends to fly a bit under the radar. But there's no reason whatsoever not to consider this car at least. It's approximately 12 years ago Nissan introduced the world to their first EV. It was the Nissan Leaf, and at the time EVs were, well, mostly for school teachers and full-blown members of Greenpeace. Today times are different, and since the Teslas came into the picture, well, EVs became hot. However, Nissan has not introduced an EV since. Well, until now. This Nissan Ariya is, at least in my opinion, a finger pointing into the future from Nissan. Let's talk a little design. Well, I'm not a great fan of this design, I have to be honest. I would give it, on a scale from 1 to 10, I would give it a 5. But what do you think? You can write your answer in the comment section below. Well, at least there's one thing I think is really genius with the design, but I've seen it before with the Mustang Mach-E. It's cheating your eyes a little bit, because you have this two-color car where the car's red and you have the black roof. And then you have this line going all the way over and actually making the car look very coupe-ish. But then they made the black roof, which the eye doesn't recognize that much, and this roof line is actually a lot higher. You see the same, as I said, on the Mach-E, and it works. You actually get a lot of headroom also on the rear seats, which is, in my opinion, pretty clever. At the rear, I want just to praise one thing. You know, many modern cars today, they have the possibility that you can just kick beneath the car and it'll open the boot. But in many cars, you'll have to do it twice or actually 3 times before it works. Never in the Nissan Ariya. It works first time, every time. The rear compartment, it is, as it usually is, pretty okay spacious without being anything special on an EV, but it's definitely usable. You also have some extra luggage space here below, where you can actually put in this part of the car also. But you also need this space for your charging cable, because this car is not equipped with a frunk, and then you can close it again. Pretty cool. The first thing that you realize when you get into the cabin of the Nissan Ariya is how spacious it is. It's really a nice place to be. It's very wide, and there's good place also for your feet down here. And this very narrow dashboard looks pretty cool, but there's a price. The engineers at Nissan, they did this by placing all of the climate stuff out in the engine bay. So there's no frunk, but yeah, you get a very spacious cabin here. And by the way, this car has a heat pump, and that's a good thing in cold climates. It doesn't take so much of your range. Another thing that I think is really positive is the materials inside the cabin. They're almost premium-ish, and I like that. The next thing you realize are these screens here in the front. There's a screen for the driver, and then there's the center screen for the infotainment. And everything on this screen is actually done by Google. And then I would suspect that that was Android Automotive, but it is Nissan's own system, but powered by Google. And that's a bit odd, because actually this car shares platform with the Renault Megane E-Tech Electric, and that car drives the Android automotive system, which is absolutely fabulous. This is also very good. You have wireless Android Auto and you have wireless Apple CarPlay, and actually things look pretty okay. You could maybe ask for a bit better resolution here in 2022, but it's absolutely okay. The navigation is of course powered by Google also. It's the Google Maps, and you also have an extra layer designed for EVs, which is actually great when you're going on a long distance journey. But what I like so much with the Android automotive and with the Teslas and a lot of other EVs actually coming also, is that you have this function where when you put in your end destination, it'll calculate how much state of charge you will arrive with, and if you need it, it will also put in your charging points. And this also does that, but you don't get your estimated state of charge real time on the screen all the time. And Nissan, I really hope you can change that, because that number is what makes an EV fun to drive on a long journey, because then you can just drive it as you would drive a car propelled on diesel or petrol. The rear of the Nissan Ariya is also really spacious and a nice place to be. You have loads of room. This seat is set up to a person my height. Yes, I make every car look large because I'm only 1 meter and 76 centimeters. But you have your USB-C and normal USB, and actually also very nice materials here in the rear. You also have your armrest, but sadly there's not, a hole to the rear compartment. But the Nissan Ariya comes with a lot of great EV features. It has a heat pump, and it also preps the battery's temperature for optimum charging when you're on a long journey and need to DC charge. And it also has another party trick up its sleeve. Most cars in Europe, they will charge on 3 phases, and they can charge at 11 kilowatts when you're AC charging. This car, it shares platform with the Renault Megane E-Tech Electric, and that has the same little party trick up its sleeve. It charges at a destination charger, if it's capable, with AC charging with 22 kilowatts. And that's twice the speed. Also, the Nissan Ariya comes in a couple of different configurations. You can get 2 battery sizes. This one has the small one. The small battery has 66 kilowatt hours total capacity, 63 kilowatt hours net capacity. And the large battery has a 91 kilowatt hours total capacity and 87 kilowatt hours net capacity. Then you can get it with front-wheel drive, or you can get it with all-wheel drive. With the front-wheel drive and small battery like this car, you have 160 kilowatts at your disposal. That's equivalent to 216 horsepower or 300 Newton meters. With the large battery, you get a bit more power from the front-wheel drive engine. Then you have 178 kilowatts, equivalent to 239 horsepower, still 300 Newton meters. And with the large battery, you get a WLTP range of 533 kilometers, while the small battery gives you just over 400 kilometers of range WLTP. And then there's the four-wheel drive version called the e-Force, always with the same large battery and a bit more power. It produces 205 kilowatts, equivalent to 275 horsepower and 600 Newton meters, and 500 kilometers of WLTP range, which tells a lot of good stuff about the efficiency of this platform. Well, you don't lose that much range when going from a two-wheel drive version to a four-wheel drive version. And another fun fact, Nissan claims that this car has a 50-50 weight distribution between the axles, as BMW has been known for many years. And if you equip this car with a trailer hook, it'll tow 750 kilos. Well, the all-wheel drive version will actually tow 1,500 kilos. Well, driving the Nissan Ariya is a pretty comfortable experience. This car is set up for comfort and daily driving with the family, daily commuting, stuff like that. I'm actually a Danish YouTuber doing this in English also, so pardon my language, I'm doing my best. But when you're driving an EV, you also have the possibility for recuperation, regenerative braking. I'm personally a great fan of the Teslas and the Polestars, which has a lot of regenerative braking. The MEB cars, that could be the Audi e-tron Q4, the Skoda Enyaq and the ID4, ID5, cars like that, they don't have the same amount of regenerative braking. This one is a little in the middle. As the MEB cars, it has the D and the B function on the gear selector. B gives you regenerative braking, and in a Nissan Ariya you also get the E pedal, which is known all the way from the old Nissan Leaf. And I have engaged the E pedal, and if I just release the accelerator now, let's see what happens. 3, 2, 1. Pretty decent deceleration actually. But below 20 kilometers an hour, it doesn't decelerate anymore. And that's actually a bit odd, because in the Nissan Leaf, it would take the car down to a standstill, which I'm a big fan of. Another thing that I've been testing in my Danish videos is how the car accelerates. And you can see that right here. It's time to accelerate this car. Normally I would do it from a parking place just near the motorway, where the road into the motorway is a great place to go from 0 to 130. I couldn't do that today. That place was closed. Police was there. It was very dramatic actually. So I'll do it just from here, where you're going directly to the motorway, and that road is pretty steep down, so that will help the car. But also the motorway has turned so much now that I have a headwind, so maybe that equals it out. Let's see. And I will engage the drive mode that is Sport to have optimal acceleration. 3, 2, 1, go. It shows me I have full power at my disposal. Okay, the race box here tells me that the slope down is 0.8% with a road going downwards. So that will of course help me a little bit on the numbers. But 0 to 80 kilometers an hour, that's 5 seconds and 32. 0 to 100 is 7.44. And 30 to 130, 10.48. That's pretty good. And of course with a state of charge of 37%. In my Danish channel, I also tested how the noise level in the cabin is. First at 80 kilometers an hour, but also at 130. Let's check out the 80 first. Yeah, 62 dB, it's actually a pretty mediocre. It's actually like a Tesla Model Y. And on the freeway at 130 kilometers an hour, it turned out like this. Yeah, 68 dBs. And on a windy day like this, that's actually very, very fine. I suppose that the noise level in this car is maybe a little higher than the MEB cars like the Skoda Enyaq, ID4, stuff like that, but on par with a car like the Tesla Model Y, for example. that was my impressions of the Nissan Ariya. I've been driving this car for a week, and what do I think about this car? Well, it's definitely a car that's gonna fly a little low under the radar. And that's actually a bit a pity, I think, because this car has a lot of qualities. The pricing for one is okay, it's like the competition, but maybe you get marginally more features with this car, standard in the car. Another thing that's been surprising me positively is the quality impressions you get in the cabin, the materials, the way things are put together. It's really nice. And the cabin is a nice place to be. It's very wide inside also, and I think you should check it out if you need space for, let's say, two children chairs, auto chairs. I don't know what the word is in English, and maybe a third minor chair for a larger kid in the rear. I think that can actually be done in this car, but it depends, of course, what chairs you have, how large your kids are, stuff like that. But check it out. I would do that, definitely. And then this car as an EV just does a lot of things right. It has a heat pump, and it also has the ability to precondition the battery for DC charging, so you'll DC charge consistent all around the year. That's really, really a good feature. So, and the car is just practical. It's comfortably set up in the suspension, the things you would suspect from a car like this. It's not a sporty ride, but as a daily driver, it does everything right. Then there's the consumption. In this week I've been driving this car, I've had a consumption of 19 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That would give me an estimated range of 330, 340 kilometers. But that's actually also okay, because we have had a lot of short journeys where the car uses a lot of energy to heat up the cabin, stuff like that. On the freeway, when you're moving at 130 kilometers an hour, I had consumption on approximately 28, 29 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And that will translate it into range would be at 130 kilometers an hour, you would go approximately 200 kilometers and you'd be all the way down to zero. In real world conditions, you won't go 130 all the time. There can be traffic, stuff like that will make you go slower, so you'll go a little further. But when you go to charge the car, you'll only charge to 80%, because that's where it charges pretty rapid. And then you don't have 200 kilometers again, you maybe have 160, and again in real world conditions a little bit more. But also let's talk about the way this car charges. I charged from 10 to 80% in just over 31 minutes. That's pretty close to what Nissan was promising on their website. That was 30 minutes. Nissan promises that the car here will peak at 130 kilowatts. I didn't go over 115, but it's okay. But this battery is also not that very large. A larger battery would definitely put more range into the car in half an hour than the small battery, because the small batteries, they just charge slower and slower. But in daily real world conditions, for my sake, I'll be charging at home every night, so I'll never be thinking about that. And if I'm going on a long journey 3-4 times a year where I maybe have to do 1 or 2 charging stops, I'll survive. So I actually think that many of these cars with the smaller batteries can actually make good sense. But if you have a lot of longer journeys, I would go for the big battery version. And the day you'll have to sell the car, you'll probably get your money back, because the car is also more worth afterwards. Thanks for watching my video. If you like my content, I'd appreciate if you'll subscribe and give me a like, and maybe comment in the section below. I hope to see you again on this channel to more talk about EVs. Take care.